I never thought the day would come when I'd question everything I built. My name is Victor, and for 22 years, I believed I was the luckiest man alive. I had a wife I adored, a daughter I cherished, and a home that I filled with laughter, sacrifices, and silent compromises. But sometimes the biggest betrayals are the ones that come quietly, without warning, from the people we swore we could trust with our soul. I met Lena in my early 20s, bright-eyed, strong-willed, and with a laugh that could light up a street. She was a single mother, her daughter barely 3, abandoned by a man who didn't deserve her. But I didn't see baggage. I saw a future. We dated for a year before I proposed. My parents warned me to be cautious. Friends asked if I was sure, but love in its purest form is stubborn. I said yes to her and her daughter without hesitation. The early years were magical. I worked long hours as an engineer, taking extra shifts to save up for our own apartment. Lena stayed home, raising little Anya with care and warmth. Every time I walked through the door, tired and sore, and saw them waiting for me with dinner and smiles, I knew it was worth it. Eventually, we bought a small apartment on the edge of the city. It wasn't much, but it was ours. I renovated it with my own hands, every screw and tile a labor of love. We laughed when the sink leaked on the first night. We danced in the living room when we got our first second-hand couch. We built a life out of ordinary moments. Anya began to call me Dad on her own when she was 7. I remember the exact moment. She scraped her knee outside and I ran out, scooped her up, and she sobbed into my neck, whispering, "Papa, it hurts." I cried more than she did that day. Years passed. I never once mentioned that I wasn't her biological father. I didn't need to. In my heart, she was mine. I was the one at every parent-teacher meeting, at every school play, teaching her how to ride a bike, stay brave at the dentist, pick the right university. I loved her deeply, fully, as if she was my own flesh and blood. Lena went back to work once Anya hit high school. She joined a medical clinic as an administrator, often returning home late, tired, but always with a story to tell. I'd make us tea, rub her shoulders, and remind her that she was incredible, that our journey had meaning. We weren't rich, but we were a team. But then, something began to shift. It was subtle at first. Missed calls, late nights explained by vague meetings, a sudden obsession with her appearance. At first I thought she was just reclaiming a part of herself, and I cheered her on. She deserved to feel beautiful. But then she became distant. Conversations turned mechanical. Dinners grew quiet. She stopped asking about my day. When I hugged her, her arms stayed limp. One night I woke up to find her sitting on the balcony at 2 a.m., staring into the darkness with tears on her cheeks. I sat beside her, took her hand, and asked if she was okay. She pulled her hand away and whispered, "Victor, I don't know who I am anymore. I should have asked more. I should have demanded answers, but I didn't. I told myself she's tired, stressed, confused. Give her space. I always gave her space. That was my mistake. The unraveling happened in slow motion, until one Tuesday evening, after I came home with groceries and found a note on the kitchen table. Just a note, not a goodbye, not an apology, just a few words scribbled in haste. "I need time. Don't look for me. Lena." I collapsed on the floor, not because I was shocked, but because I finally admitted to myself I had felt it coming for months. I didn't think I'd ever return to that courtroom. But 2 months later, there I was again. Same judge, same opposing counsel, same cold fluorescent lights that made everyone look guilty. But this time, I wasn't there for Karina. This time, I was called as a witness in a separate lawsuit. This one filed by Glenn's estranged brother, who'd suddenly found a reason to contest the will. He claimed undue influence, manipulation, mental incompetence. Claimed I had inserted myself into Glenn's final days to get close to the money. It would have been laughable if it hadn't been so sharp. The kind of accusation that leaves a splinter in your name, no matter how false. I spent hours on the stand, recounting everything, every holiday, every insult, every time I bit my tongue to stay in Karina's good graces, or Glenn's. I answered their questions with calm, even when they implied I'd seduced a dying man out of guilt. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. But my hands shook when they showed the footage again. The one from the library where Glenn declared his reasons. And when the lawyer for Glenn's brother said, "But he didn't even like you, Mr. Carr," I said, "He didn't have to like me. He just had to see me." That line made the front page of the paper the next day. I didn't want that. But fame, like grief, doesn't always ask for permission. Karina wasn't at the hearing. She couldn't be, legally. But I saw her name in the news. Heard her voice in my sleep sometimes, still echoing with the words, "You were a mistake that lasted too long." She tried to call once. Blocked number. Left no voicemail. I deleted the call log without listening. That part of my life, the echo chamber of her manipulations, was finally sealed shut. And yet something in me didn't settle. I kept thinking about the envelope, the one Glenn left labeled private, to be opened by Wendell only if necessary. I hadn't touched it. It sat in my drawer like a sleeping dog. But now, maybe it was time. Inside was a USB, simple, no label. I plugged it into an old laptop and waited. A video played. Short, just Glenn sitting at his desk. No suit, no mask. Just a tired man speaking into a webcam. "If you're watching this," he said, "it means the truth didn't come out clean." He paused, breathed heavily. "I've lied about things, covered others, but not this." Karina changed when her mother died. She blamed me, blamed the doctors, blamed everyone. She stopped loving Wendell. I saw it. She turned survival into performance, her smiles into weapons. She didn't even cry at the funeral. Not really. He swallowed hard. But you stayed. You made me angry, yes. You reminded me of who I could have been if I wasn't such a bastard. And that's why I left you the money. Not for charity, not for spite. Because I believe people like you, people who suffer quietly, deserve to win once. He leaned closer to the camera. "If they try to take it from you, show them this, and then walk away." The video ended. I closed the laptop and sat there, stunned. Not because I had more proof, not because I'd won, but because for the first time in my life, someone had actually seen me. Not the version Karina sculpted, not the failure I feared becoming. Me. And maybe, just maybe, that was worth more than the empire itself. And only months later did I finally understand, an inheritance isn't a reward, it's a challenge. If none of this had happened, I might have stayed invisible forever. Overlooked not just by others, but by myself. My career, the one I never had, suddenly began to take shape. One of the lawyers who handled Karina's case once asked me, "Have you always been this sharp in your thinking? You'd be great in strategic consulting." I shrugged at the time. 2 months later, I was interviewing at a firm that once wouldn't even return my calls. Apparently, a media-covered millionaire with no fear of saying uncomfortable truths is a rare breed. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of the future. I wasn't afraid to wake up and feel pain again. Karina was gone. For real this time. Last I heard, she'd left the country to rebuild herself. Ironic, really. When you destroy everything around you, eventually the ground gives way beneath your own feet. But me, I kept building. Not homes, not offices, not sandcastles, but myself, brick by brick, day by day. I started investing in people who saw me not as a beneficiary, but as a human being. Me and my rescue dog, Captain Pickles, became inseparable. He was like me, forgotten once, now free. Sometimes I think he understands me better than most people ever did. And then one day, I found myself standing outside the house where it all began, the Darby estate, now legally mine. But standing at those gates, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel angry. I felt done. I walked down the path where Karina once screamed at her father, past the fountain where I once believed I'd never be loved again, and I stopped at the front door. "You became who you were always meant to be," a voice said in my head. Maybe it was Glenn. Maybe it was finally my own. There was no fairy tale, no kiss to seal the ending, no happily ever after, not in the way we're taught to expect. But this was peace, and peace is rarer than any fantasy. Но это был конец, за которым начиналась настоящая жизнь. Thanks for watching. That's how this story ended, with freedom, clarity, and no regrets. Have you ever had a moment when you finally stood up for yourself? Drop your story in the comments. Someone out there needs to hear it. And if this hit you deep, like and subscribe. More real stories, bold, raw, and unapologetically honest, are coming soon.